behavioral engineering model. So this is based on an understanding of humans as systems, and identifies that the behaviors, it's all about behavior change, not knowledge change or espoused values or whatever else. And it identifies that the behaviors people exhibit are mostly due to the influences. And if you want to change someone's behaviors, change the influences. So then it looks at what are all those influences and what are the impacts that they have. And so based on the work of Skinner, Gilbert, et al., all those people, they defined that there are 6 influencers, and there is a priority between those 6. So this one has more impact than this, and so on all the way down. And people's behavior overall is the result. So interestingly, the places that we commonly focus are typically on the 6th most effective and 4th most effective things, while ignoring all of the top 3. So let's look at what each one is. So the first one is norms and expectations. And so this is best described as the things I just assume are true. I just assume, so in that example we were talking about earlier, I just assume that I, as a developer, need to do well for my team, and a big part of that is if we are almost going to ship, but we're going to miss my deliverable because I can't get this thing in, I'm holding the whole team hostage. I need to get this in, and I need to do whatever is necessary to do so. It is an implicit, unquestioned norm that's what's good for the team. And so without thought, I will simply do the behavior of cramming to fit. Okay, cool. The next one is tools, which includes processes.
Okay.
And so test-driven development is a hugely effective impactor on way people do design, because it's a tool. And it forces you to do that. Jira is a huge impactor on the way people put together stories. TFS is another one, and they cause, if I look at a team and I see how they are manipulating stories and dealing with them, I can probably tell you what tool they're using to manipulate stories, because there are certain common patterns that are made easy by that tool, and that's what people do. People do something different in Trello than they do in Jira, and they learn different techniques. Next one, data and feedback. Now, importantly, this does not include feedback as in I'm assessing you and telling you what I think. There is some of that, and that does show up here a little bit. Some of that also shows up in like peer pressure and some norms and expectations. Some of that doesn't actually have much impact at all. It shows up way over here. But what this mostly is when I take an action, when I exhibit a behavior, how long is it until I see the impact of that behavior, and how visible is that impact? And so if that's a really long cycle, or if the results are muddied, then I don't get a lot of data, I don't have a high feedback, and I'm sort of in a mess.
Right.
As soon as that's clear, behavior shifts.
So it's internal feedback as opposed to sort of external.
And it still includes external as well.
Okay.
And that's a part, I drew this way. There's intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Right? And so each of these, I've been describing the internal form, but the external form also exists.
Okay.
Extrinsic. Yeah. So there's those 3 that we commonly ignore. The next one is skills and knowledge. This is where we spend most of our time working. And yeah, people do need to know how to do a thing, and they need to be exposed to it. But actually, usually, either they know it, or someone on the team already knows it, or the knowledge is, or it's available on the internet. I've heard of this internet thing.
Yeah.
Skill and knowledge is very rarely a blocker, and even when people don't have the skill or knowledge, if these are aligned, if they have a tool that they're working on that gives them immediate feedback and they don't know how to do the thing, wait 2 weeks. they will now do it in the way that the tool told them how to do it. They will gain the skill of doing it the tool's way. Right? If there is a norm, if there is a norm on the team, like, no one goes alone, we always pair program together. Or if there is a norm on the team of we test everything and we test without norms, and we always unit test. Or if there is a norm of we test everything and we do it end to end. Soon, all of the skills and knowledge will match that norm.
Yep, absolutely.
Whether that's in the direction we want or don't want, all the skills and knowledge will match that norm. So we don't actually need to work much with it. Yeah. The next one is capabilities. This one is almost entirely irrelevant to us. So capability, here we're talking like it is very difficult to teach a person who has been blind their entire life about color. They simply don't have the physical equipment to experience that.
Right.
Yeah. And so in programming, like, this would be significant mental retardation. Like, it's really hard to learn to program if you just, like, don't have that capacity. It tends to be solved at the hiring process for the level that we're talking about here. So it's safe to ignore.
It's a coarse filter that shouldn't,
Yeah, it's a really coarse filter. We don't need to pay much attention. And interestingly, and this is where people focus 99% of their effort, motivation and values. What do I want and what do I think is true is the sixth most influencing factor out of 6. It does have some effect, but a couple of things. One, it tends to be that humans are, we're not rational, we're rationalizing, right? And so whatever behaviors we do, whatever we find ourselves doing in our hands and our fingers, we then try and make up why that makes sense. And so our motivations quickly adapt to the behaviors that we're expressing. If I change these things, I shift your behavior, and then your motivation, your values, and your desires will come into line. If your motivation and values and desires differ from these, and you don't have any behavior, you're going to go to this behavior and then explain it, not to what you want and then shift this. Right? So I also simply ignore that call.
Right.
I don't need to convince you of anything. You'll do that just fine on your own.
Yeah, you will self-convince given the top 4.
Doing the top 4. Yeah. Now, because I know there's so much overemphasis on this and that it's fourth, I do a quick check in on it and then ignore it. Because most of the time I can't ignore it. I see that there's other things going on. And because I do the quick check at all, because everyone else believes that's where we need to focus. So I need to gather enough information to be able to raise the argument of this is pushing on the wrong end of the lever. Let's look over here.
Right. Do it where it's easiest, and you get it for free.
Yeah. So it's unlock behaviors, as I was mentioning before. Unlock behavior, and then they will drive themselves. Now, the challenge. Oh, and then there's intrinsic and extrinsic forms of this, and this is the extension of the model that I added. So in the intrinsic form, that's mostly what I just described, and then the extrinsic is, coming from the outside. Here it would be peer pressure, or management dictate.
Right.
Or annual review is a tool and process from the external. Or where TDD is generally effectively an internal process, because it's such a tight loop, it stays within. Doing your acceptance testing in a separate end-to-end framework and whatever tends to be more of an extrinsic tool. And that's part of why they have such different degrees of impact on people's shifted behavior. Right? This is outside your thinking loop. And so on. Interestingly, we tend to focus here and here. This is we're going to change leaders and have them say different things and espouse values. This is we're going to do a bunch of training classes. The other place that we try and do is here-ish. We're going to change leaders and try and have them shift a norm by mandating new ways of thinking and new goal setting and the like and alignment. And that sort of works. It's upstream of a number of these, but the extrinsics are much less effective than intrinsics.
Right. Yeah, an extrinsic norms expectation isn't as impactful as an intrinsic norm change.
Right. And even it's not as impactful as a change in the tools process plus the data.
Yeah.
If you change both of those, it will overwhelm this. Right? And so when I'm working with a team, I map out what are the influencers today that are maintaining the current state, and draw all those. And then I map out, and then I just grab what is the desired state, and what would be some changes that we can make on these influencers that would cause people to have the behavior of the desired state. And often there will be something in this box that I want to shift. Because things over time do tend to be the strongest motivator, changes the behavior, changes what tool selection gets happened, right? With other things.
Right.
Right. So then, and thus the total set of behavior. So usually my intervention is that's actually the hardest box to change because there's nothing above it.
Yes. Yeah.
But I can align a couple of boxes to it. And so if I do an alignment of those three boxes in some way, usually, but of anything within this range that is focused on shifting exactly one norm, then we can get that norm to change and all the behavior starts to shift.
Right. So you change a couple of the downstream expectations or behaviors that would then reinforce or create the norm expectation.
Yeah, it's not quite the downstream behaviors. It's close.
Yeah.
So what I do is I change some of the less impactful motivators.
Okay.
Simultaneously and in a consistent way that aligns with the new norm I want to set, and I remove a couple of those that are reinforcing and supporting the old norm that's there.
Right.
And then I will also do a meme campaign or something, which is an external norm shift. So like continuous delivery by 2019, or hashtag no mocks, or or slay bug mountains, another one. Let's just stop writing bugs.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
All of those are memes that are easy to spread, they're easy to move, that put words to the intrinsic norm that I'm trying to put in.
Okay.
And then when I set up the tools and processes, people can align that, and then they can actually incorporate that norm. And change it.
How do you? What I would expect that if you're changing the norms motivation, that your feedback for you as to the effects of that change or seeing any of the effects is going to be delayed. So what is sort of the delay or time frame?
It's actually not that delayed, because all of these are influencers and have impact. So even if this doesn't change, changing these shifts behavior. Right. And one of the nice things here is that I'm talking about the things that change actual behavior, which means it's really observable.
Okay.
Observing what these influencers are takes some analysis and some study and like deep going and investigating. But seeing the behaviors people exhibit, it's obvious.
You just go and sit with the team or
Yeah,
walk
you
by.
ask the team. Like, you track the thing. Often a lot of things that I'm trying to do are let's get them to increase transparency. So it goes from I really can't tell to now every week this team is publishing a bunch of charts that are showing the data on how well they're performing, and it's like, look, the behavior's different.
Yep.
I don't even care whether the chart's going up and to the right. The behavior of we're inspecting, we're adapting, we're doing data-driven analysis of our own stuff has already happened.
Okay. Yeah. Or you can walk by, in the case we talked about with silos or individuals on a team, for more collaborative, you just walk by and see, look, they're pairing.
Look, they're pairing 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's real easy to see. Yeah. So, and those behavior shifts tend to happen fairly quickly. The when does the norm change? When does this become the expected thing that's reinforced? That can take a little while.
Yeah.
But as long as these are still in place, and as long as the behavior is happening, then over time it is fairly likely that will start shifting. And one of the other crossing things that I'm just going to mention here, had a really good conversation around information dispersal theory and the like. and it talks about there are three at a large systems level, so, like big human populations levels. Memes and ideas are the concepts, and they spread, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the things that determine the spread of those, there's three primary pressures. And one of those is regulatory pressure. There's a rule in place, thou shalt follow, whatever.
Right.
That's basically a tools and process hack.
Okay.
Right? And those tend to be one of the best ways actually to move you out of a stable state is to make a rule that we're going to do a new thing. And it can be painful. It
Right.
can suck.
Yeah.
But it moves us out of an unquestioned stable state. One of the strongest ones that's a maintainer of current state until it flips is mimetic pressure, stories. I forgot the third one. But stories are a direct hack on norms and expectations. It's telling the story. There's an unconscious story going around already that's describing this norm and why things happen and whatever else.
Right.
And if I can get a little bit of a shift and find a couple of stories and then tell those stories and get that spread, then that switches it from being a strong, stable pressure reinforcing meme A to be a strong pressure reinforcing meme B.
Right.
And those stories will fight each other out. But if one of them is supported by governance,
It's even more powerful.
it's more powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's behavioral engineering model. And the way I do most of my change work and thinking, it's all about unlocking shifts in behavior, and then not worrying. I don't worry about principles. I don't worry about ideals. That's all stuff down here. Agile, like the whole Agile manifesto and all those things. That's nice. It's a description of this.
Right.
I don't need it.
Yeah. You get it for free if you change the upper ones.
Yeah. Everyone rediscovers it and they have their own snowbird moment.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you very much, Arlo.
Awesome.